So before moving forward, uh, looking at different locators, let me show you how you can use different developer tools within a browser to inspect your elements, right? So I've been doing this in my previous videos, but let me show you how you can do it on your own. And let me show you the steps basically, right? So there are many ways to launch the developer tools. So we'll be looking at the Chrome browser. So every browser has that, but I'll be telling you about the Chrome browser, right? So if you can go to, so let me just open browser, right? So this is our application. And if you go to the right corner, there are three dots on the Chrome browser, right? And if you click on it, it shows you a list of menu. Now on that, if you go to more tools, right? And there you will find developer tools, right? So once you go to developer tools, although there are lots of options, we are only concerned about the elements, right? So where we will get all our HTML elements of our page, and we can view all the properties of each element, right? By hovering over the element, you can do that. Now, obviously there is also a shortcut, right? So if you press Control Shift and I, so you can go to the same elements screen, right? Elements menu. So also there is a nice shortcut for that, for this, right? So if you press F12, you can also directly reach here, right? And the last way to identify any element on a browser, right? So you can directly go to the element, right? Like I'm uh, trying to identify this sign in button, right? So I'll right click on this, and there is an option inspect. So when you click inspect, it will show you directly, it will point to the element properties, HTML properties, right? So the button type is submit, ID is submit, it has got a class name, and then the text, which is sign in, right? So this is the button element, which is being highlighted right now. So this way, it's pretty easy to identify your elements, right? Now, if you want further help from this, right? If you want the XPath directly for your element, you can right click on this element, HTML element, right here. And then on the menu, you will see there is a copy, copy link, copy menu, right? So when you hover over this and you go into the drop down on the last two items, there is copy XPath and copy full XPath, right? So when you copy the XPath here, it copies the relative path of this particular element, right? So if I show you, if I copy the XPath and I paste it here somewhere, so this is my uh, identifier for the button, right? And this is the relative XPath. So it directly gives you the relative XPath. You can also construct your own XPath, but if you don't want to, you can directly copy this and use it as it is, right? Now, the other uh, thing in this menu is, so if you go to copy and copy full XPath, right? So that's, and you paste it here, right? So this is the static XPath, which begins from the top of the tree, right? So it will traverse the whole path and it will reach the button. Now, this is not always a good idea because if anything changes in your application, this path will fail. So it's always advisable to use the relative path of a element, right? To identify that particular element. So these are the different ways, right? How you can identify your element easily using the Chrome part development tools, right? So there are lots of developer tools and we can use them. So I generally prefer this, although there are lots of plugins also available, like there is CrowPath and there are many others through which you can identify elements. But I generally prefer the default way of a Chrome browser where it provides the developer tools where we can easily find the XPath, right? So another cool thing I want to show you, right? So while you work on your automation and trying to identify some element, and if you're constructing your own XPath, right? So say for example, I want to construct the XPath for this button, right? So press Control F, right? And it will show you uh, a find text box, right? So if you type your XPath here, right? So if I choose ID as my XPath, right? So at ID equals to submit, right? So this is my own XPath. And the cool thing about this is you can actually test whatever you have constructed, your XPath, you can paste it here and it will actually highlight that particular element and also on the UI, right? So you can know that your XPath is correct, which you are going to use in your scripts. The other cool thing about it is it also shows how many elements are present, right, for a particular XPath. So if there are multiple elements matching this XPath, it will show you more than one of two. So all the elements which are matching this XPath, it will show the number. It will show the number here. So you can easily make out whether your locator which you are using is unique or not for a particular element, right? So for example, right? So if I can show you, let's try with something very simple. So I'll just type div, right? And you can see here it is showing 11 div elements right now, right? So there are 11 div elements which are present in this complete page. So that's a cool feature, right? You can test your XPath. You can find any element from here, right? So if I want to find a button, I'll just type button here and it will show me what elements are there with the button type, right? So that's how you can play around and try to identify your elements using the browser tools, right? So every browser has that, but you can always work with Chrome as it is. So that's what I wanted to show you here on how to inspect elements within your browser using the developer tools. And in the next section, we will look at the different locators which are present in Selenium and how we can use them.